Celebration, and wish you a happy Vesak Day. First, a little bit about the Hawaii Association of International Buddhists. In January of 1992, the Hawaii Association of International Buddhists, or HABE, as we call it, came officially into being with the adoption of its bylaws. The purpose of the organization is clearly stated in the preamble of our bylaws. It reads, "We, the Buddhists of Hawaii, seeking to represent all Buddhist schools and traditions, agree as follows. To foster friendship and understanding among Buddhist groups. To secure solidarity among them through realization of the essential unity of all Buddhist schools. 3, to promote the development of spirituality for improving the quality of life among Buddhists as well as all humanity as a whole. And 4, to organize programs for the achievement of peace and harmony through Buddhism's benign spirit of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, and the pursuit of happiness and well-being for all humankind." HABE's fundamental purpose is to recognize and celebrate unity within diversity among all Buddhists in Hawaii. This year is the 30th anniversary of the official founding of HABE, but HABE's beginnings extend back almost 50 years to the early 1970s. HABE volunteers are currently researching available documents and archives to accurately document all those involved in HABE's formative phase from the early 1970s to 1989, and then the organizational phase of HABE in 1990 and 91. And from there, during that formational phase was when HABE became incorporated and received 501c3 tax-exempt status. And from there, 1992 to the present, the contemporary phase, all that is being looked into and cataloged. A complete history of HABE will be published on the HABE website when it is complete later this year. Among those instrumental in HABE's founding and formation of the organization were the late University of Hawaii religion professor David Chappell, the late Honpa Hongwanji Bishop Yoshiaki Fujitani, and the late Mr. Richard Pa'u. Also crucial in HABE's organizational phase was pro bono legal assistance from the late Herbert Hayato Tanigawa and his son, attorney Michael K. Tanigawa. We are deeply grateful to these fine people and the many others who helped establish HABE and support its work throughout the years. Today, and for the last 30 years, HABE has been an active organization of individuals with diverse Buddhist backgrounds coming together to get to know one another, learn the rich and varied practices of our different Buddhist traditions, and to promote spirituality and well-being for all humankind. In this HABE's 30th anniversary year, we especially invite you to join HABE and support our work. The easiest way to do this is to visit HABE's website, hawaiibuddhists.org. There on the homepage, up in the upper right corner, is a button that says Join HABE. You can click that button and you can easily become a member that way. And thank you for doing that. In our Vesak program this evening, we join many millions of people around the world on this full moon day in May to celebrate the birth, the enlightenment, the life and death of the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, and his profound teachings of wisdom and compassion. We begin our celebration today with a recitation of the vow of humankind, written by the accomplished professor and Zen layman, Shinichi Hisamatsu. Please keep your mics muted during the recitation. You can follow along if you like. Vow of humankind. Calm and composed, awakening to our true self, practicing ardently our compassion, making full use of our abilities according to our respective vocations, discerning suffering, both individual and social, and its causes, recognizing the right course for history to proceed. Let us join hands as kin beyond the differences of race, nation, and class. Oops, I lost my place there. There we go. With love and compassion, we vow to bring realization of humankind's deep desire for realization by making every effort to create a world that is peaceful and joyous. Thank you. It is now my great pleasure to introduce my friend and our moderator for this evening's program, Dr. Gregory Pai. Greg has studied and practiced meditation since the mid-1970s in the Tibetan Zen and Vipassana traditions. Greg also formerly served in the administrations of Governor Benjamin Cayetano and John Waihee, as well as chief economist for First Hawaiian Bank. Greg currently teaches a public meditation class at the Broken Ridge Korean Temple in Palolo Valley. Greg, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here this evening as we all celebrate the birth of the Buddha. It's my pleasure to be the moderator for today's panel. Perhaps the one Buddhist teaching that most people in the world identify as being distinctly Buddhist, and that all the diverse traditions of Buddhism hold in common, is the Four Noble Truths. First preached to the original 5 disciples in the Deer Park in Benares, in the Deer Park of Isipatana in Benares. The first noble truth posits the reality of suffering as an innate characteristic of existence. The second noble truth posits the cause of suffering as craving, desire, and attachment. The third noble truth declares the possibility for the end of suffering. And the fourth noble truth lays out the path to the end of suffering through the attainment of wisdom achieved through a life of moral and ethical purity and meditation practice. The vision for today's program is to shine a light on the Four Noble Truths as the beacon of the Buddha's great dispensation to humankind. But the intention is not to present it as a dry kind of academic treatise, but more as a personal statement of how we actually bring the Four Noble Truths into our lives. It is to show how the teaching of the Four Noble Truths and our understanding of the Dharma affect our personal values, how we live our lives, and our aspirations and life goals. The intention is to highlight in a personal way how important the Dharma is to us and how we incorporate the Dharma into our daily lives. The other intention of this program was to highlight the experience of our younger generation of Buddhists by convening a panel of participants with a strong commitment and dedication to the Dharma, in the hopes that their words can be an inspiration to all those who follow in the Buddha's path. And I am pleased and happy to say today that we have an extraordinary panel of speakers today. All of our speakers have integrated the Dharma into their lives and are living out the principles of the Dharma in their personal and professional lives. It is great pleasure. It is with a great pleasure and a sense of privilege and honor that I feel honored to moderate today's panel discussion. We had 4 panelists planned for today, but unfortunately, one of our panelists fell ill this past weekend and was not able to make it. Her name was Alexandriana Harmon. Unfortunately, Alex cannot participate today as she was not feeling well this past weekend. So we wish her a rapid recovery in the hopes that she will be able to participate in future HABE events. So to begin our presentations for today, I'd like to start by introducing Jin Crystal Zhang. Jin encountered Chan Buddhism when she attended a 5-day Chan retreat for young people held by Dharma Drum Mountain in Hong Kong in 2015. She became serious about the practice from that time on. She has since then studied Chan meditation from Master Shen Yen and his Dharma heirs in the Dharma Drum Mountain lineage. In 2016, she became a student of Michael Kieran and started practicing with the Honolulu Diamond Sangha, where she now serves as the president of the board of directors. She takes refuge in the 3 treasures, and in doing so, reclaims the richness and fullness of life. She is now a PhD candidate in the Department of Second Language Studies at the University of Hawaii. So I'd like to begin by welcoming Jin Crystal Zhang. Jin, would you please unmute yourself and welcome to our panel.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So I should start the presentation or?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Dr. Pai and Michael and all the other audience, all the Buddhists united. I am very excited and honored to meet other young Buddhists in this panel and have a discussion on our personal exploration or our experience of living the 4 Noble Truths. I grew up in mainland China, where Buddhism has a rather long history. But ironically, I did not start learning Buddhism until after I left mainland China and studied abroad, first in Hong Kong and then later landed in Hawaii. I remember that one time I was talking to a religion professor at the University of Hawaii about the membership, the composition of membership in Buddhism. And he told me that Buddhism is, in general, an old people's religion. He said, why would young people want to hear the teaching that life is suffering? They are much more interested in pursuing happiness. Well, I think there's some truth in his statement, but it's not always true. Because I became interested in Buddhism precisely after hearing about the teaching on the first noble truth, dukkha, that the innate characteristic of life is pain or suffering. I remember until this day vividly that I had quite an aha moment when I first heard about it from a friend who now is a very good Dhamma friend of mine. I felt that this truth resonated so strongly with me because I've always felt a sense of anguish deep in my heart. It is like an undercurrent running through my life from childhood to teenage and then adulthood. It is a sense of heartfelt dissatisfaction, dis-ease, if you put it that way. Please don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that I didn't experience joy or pleasure in life. I have plenty happy and joyful moments in my life. But when I was alone with myself, without the distraction of life goals and the to-do lists, I could feel that sense of strong dissatisfaction. It grew stronger and more prominent as time went by, and it did not go away whatever success I achieved in my life. Success in my career, in my school, at school, it always loomed in the back of my mind. I didn't know where it came from, why it was there. I felt that there was something wrong, and I definitely wanted to fix it. And guess what? That's exactly what the Buddha taught in the Four Noble Truths, that life is pain or suffering, and there's cause of the suffering, there's possibility of cessation of the suffering, and there's the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So I originally grew up in a non-religious family and was never interested in any religion at all. But the Buddha's teaching on dukkha spoke so directly to my own experience, like nobody else had ever told me that. And it also sparked my curiosity in Buddhism. So in my survey of Buddhist teachings, I came across Master Sheng Yen, a well-known Chan master and Buddhist scholar. And I found this very strong personal affinity with him, even though I never met him in person because he had passed away when I knew him. So I read his books and went to practice with the monastery he founded, the Dhammadra Mountain Monastery. I learned that the cause of suffering is the discriminating mind that's always judging from the point of self-reference. I was too much living in my head, in my mind, and believing in my thoughts of who I am. Those thoughts are like thieves that rob the life of me. Slowly and with pain, with the help of Zazen, the sitting meditation, I was able to get out of my mind and my thought for a little bit and directly get in touch with my own suffering. It was like one day I had an experience when I was standing by the Manoa stream, watching the water running by my feet. I could clearly see the water ran against the rock and splashed in the air. Pure, shiny water drops, splashes in the water. At one point, I was moved to squat down, reach to my hand, and touched the splash, the water, flowing stream. That moment was like, wow, for the first time, I was directly connected with the water. I was not just standing by watching it. I was in it and I was connected with it. So paradoxically, cessation of suffering happens at the moment I am fully aware of and present with it, when I fully accept life as it is without wanting it to be something else. That was the lesson that I learned from that experience. This reminded me of 2 weeks ago when I received the invitation to give a talk at this panel. I happened to be talking with my auntie who was suffering from cancer. At that time, she couldn't eat and was in great distress. She was depressed and for some time lost her will to live. I was deeply impacted by her distress. And for the next few days, I woke up with sadness and concern for my auntie's well-being and couldn't help crying. But I just allowed myself to be immersed in sorrow and grief and let the emotion flow through my body fully. In the meantime, in the midst of sorrow, I didn't lose my ground for the first time. I was able to see that as my auntie suffers and slowly approaches the end of her life, as all of us are doing at the same time. The flowers still bloom, the stream flows, the birds sing, and the roosters crow, all at the same time. This is a larger background with the spotlight of our suffering. This bigger backdrop in the background. When the sorrow came to a natural end, I returned to my daily routine of writing my dissertation, looking for a job, and eating and sleeping. The innate characteristic of life is suffering, and I vow to embrace and live it fully. This is the end of my presentation, and I look forward to discussions with other panelists and the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. That was very beautiful. It was very moving, very beautiful. Thank you from the bottom of our heart for your heartfelt sharing. That was truly wonderful. Thank you so much. We feel truly privileged to hear such intimate and personal and heartfelt words from you. It was very beautiful. I'm sure we all appreciate it very much. Okay, that was very moving, I have to say. I think we're all very touched by what you said. Okay, our next speaker her name is Kate Vosti. Kate is a somatic facilitator who offers a unique therapeutic experience using dance and movement to repurpose grief, reconnect to joy, and claim authentic expression and confidence. Wonderfully stated, Kate. Beautifully worded. She has a master's degree in leadership studies and somatic psychotherapy. She studied Buddhism for 10 years and trained in various forms of dance for 25 years. Kate has led her compassion-based leadership program for nuns in Indonesia, Vietnam, and India. She is passionate about weaving the Dharma, leadership, and psychosomatic movement practice together to help women heal from trauma and live vibrant, fulfilling lives. Quite an impressive experience, Kate. I have to say, I'm quite impressed by what you've learned and what you're doing. So it's a pleasure, a sincere pleasure to introduce you to our group, Kate. Please proceed ahead. Unmute yourself and proceed ahead.
Making me blush, Craig. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, hello. I'm very honored to be here. And if you can hear any of the birds chirping in the background, I just welcome that as just some added beautiful extra Hawaiian experience. I'm in Oahu right now. All right, I'm gonna start my little timer. Okay, perfect. So hi, yes. Yes, so dukkha, yes. There is inevitable suffering in life. And I feel like so often, at least I've heard, mistakenly, and I feel like it's been a big turnoff, right? We're exploring the younger generation's attraction to Buddhism. And I feel like a big deterrent is kind of this, the first noble truth, this kind of misunderstanding that suffering is life, which really wasn't what the Buddha was teaching, right? It was more of that there is inevitable suffering in life, not that life is all suffering. And so many of us, not all of us, but many of us have stories with a lot of suffering. And sometimes we can't always tell just by looking at someone what they've been through. And I know I can speak from personal experience. I sit in a seat of privilege. And by just looking at me, people may have not known what my story has been. And so as I've navigated that through life, I've been able to kind of really apply the Buddhist teachings of compassion and understanding for others through understanding my own suffering. So my first bout with dukkha was being diagnosed with scoliosis when I was little. I've had 5 spine surgeries, and I remember lying on the couch after my spine had been fused. I was 17. And everyone else was going through college, and my friends were texting me, "Oh, how are you?" "Oh, I'm lying on the couch. I just had 10 vertebrae fused," and, dukkha. And I hadn't found Buddhism yet, but I remember, for whatever reason, picking up Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Around Peace is Every Step. And I remember lying on the couch in all this pain, both physical and emotional, right? The first, the second arrows. Why me? Why me? And I remember reading through this book and the eloquence that Thich Nhat Hanh brings to the beauty of the present moment, of mindfulness. And that was nothing I had ever really heard. And that's when I really kind of began my exploration into the Dharma. And it continued to serve me as down the road. I fell into some more dukkha. 4 years ago, my family's home in Napa burned down. And then my father died of cancer 11 days later. And what got me through that time was actually a recording of Robert Thurman's Liberation Upon Hearing in the In-Between. He talks about the Bardo state. And I remember sitting at next to my dad as he was within his last hour and really being able to witness the dying process firsthand with this man that I was very, very close with, I was taking care of, and being able to really see death. And what a gift that's been. And as I listened to Robert Thurman's Liberation from Hearing in the In-Between, being able to really imagine my dad going to the Pure Lands. And so I've had all of these experiences of dukkha that, because I've been able to apply the Dharma in these moments that matter, right? We all have these moments that matter, that we come face to face with what we're made of. Lying on a couch with rods that are just been put in my spine, or lying next to my father's deathbed, or walking through the ashes of my family's home, and being able to feel this is suffering. And then tanha, the second one. So from a young age, I knew that there was something very sacred about Buddhism. I remember my mom bargaining with me that if I agreed to get confirmed in the Episcopal Church at 12 years old, then I never had to go to Sunday school again. So I took that bargain because I never wanted to go back to Sunday school. I took that bargain. But I really always held still this belief of like, okay, but one day I'm going to be a Buddhist. But the narrative I had was that I can't yet because I don't want to disgrace the religion. I wasn't worthy of being a Buddhist. And for some reason, I knew that it was about attachment and dependence that was keeping me from being able to be a Buddhist. And I still had, dependence on certain, things that were part of my life as a teenager, and, navigating social things and expectations and pressures and everything like that. Things that I was still dependent upon. I was like, I can't embody this truth of being dependent on this and also being a Buddhist. So I knew that. And then I remember going to a Dharma talk at Spirit Rock, because I'm from San Francisco, with Joseph Goldstein. And he was talking about attachment. He was talking about, there's nothing wrong about owning a cashmere scarf. There's nothing wrong about owning it. It's about your relationship to it. If you're attached to it, then it causes suffering. But if you're unattached to the role that this cashmere scarf plays in your life and whatever happens to it, then it's okay to have the cashmere scarf. And I was like, okay, that I can work with. That feels tangible. This shift in relationship, if everything is about shifting relationship to something, I'm like, okay, I can work with this. It's about my relationship to the attachment rather than actually feeling shame around having something nice or, So with this shift in perception, this third one, nirvana, there's a way out. What I have found to be so liberating and helped me to realize true contentment with it myself always comes down to perception. And I use it as one of my greatest skills in how to shift the perception of my reality, knowing that heaven and hell are states of mind. And if I can develop the agility to move between these perceptions of reality, these moments that we've all experienced of hell, whether it's the physical lying on the couch after surgery or whatever your experience in the physical hell has been, or the mental hell, depression, rage, panic, fear, all of these are mental prisons that we've all experienced ourselves in. And the way out is through the perception of, this is one of my favorite mantras, is find your wound, find your purpose. And so how can we cultivate bodhicitta? Through understanding our wound, understanding our suffering, and then from there, finding our purpose, just to help others who are also suffering, because we're all suffering. So a little bit about in my intro, I help people with grief. As I've shared, I've gone through quite a bit of it in the 30 years of my existence. And it's really about I like to help people understand it's really about this experience of holding the both and. That's the superpower of the heart, is to hold the both and, both the grief and the joy simultaneously. And this is less about the mind, because the mind can't often really make sense of loss and grief and trauma. And that this is my work with the somatic, like it goes into the body, it goes into the heart, it's held in the heart. And so the less about the mind and more about the somatic intelligence of liberation. And so as I've moved through developing this therapeutic technique for my clients, I've been so inspired by the Eightfold Path. For developing ourselves, we often use this term of self-growth, as if we need to become better, as if we aren't good enough. And yes, I did have that debilitating belief for so long. I wasn't enough, I wasn't good enough. That I had to be better, I had to be more, kinder, more patient. But through understanding the teachings, dissecting them, I realized that this process towards liberation isn't about growth. about self-untangling, untangling all the delusions that are piled on top of this Buddha nature. I like to call it the perfect, the ember of love that burns in us. And so when we're able to start untangling these traumas and recognizing that we all have these Buddha natures within us, we're able to access our wholeness, our enoughness. And that's been my journey with the Dharma, and how it's helped me every single day, and how I've wanted to create something to give back to others who are also plagued with self-doubt, who are also plagued with grief, any type of dukkha. Because these teachings really are applicable if we can continuously find the right language to keep communicating them in a way that these younger generations can understand and really apply. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was very, very powerful, extremely powerful. I think we're all, very
Michael, it looks like Greg. We lost Greg.
I imagine he'll come right back in, but we have Kim next. And thank you, Kate. That was awesome. That was really beautiful. Wow. I can offer Kim's bio here, I think. Oh, there's Greg. Okay. Yay, he's back. You're muted, Greg.
Okay, I'm terribly sorry. I accidentally hit the breakout room as I was talking, and I just left the room and I went to another room, but I'm glad I'm back. And so Kate, thank you so much. I was just about to say, I was totally moved by what you said and your expression of your experience and the experiences you went through as a child with your spine and the fire in your home and the death of your father. You certainly have, suffered tremendously. And I think to a certain extent that has created the greatness of heart that you hold within yourself to understand human suffering and to see the way to help others out of their own suffering. You have truly experienced it within your own self. And I think we're all just completely blown away by your experience. And so thank you so much for sharing that at such an intimate, personal level. It was just beautiful. It was truly, truly beautiful. And I also should say that Kate is a student of Karma Lekshe Somo. She was recommended by Karma Lekshe, and Karma Lekshe, I can see why you feel so highly and so strongly about Kate. She's truly a wonderful, wonderful person. And we're all truly grateful for your relationship and your mentorship of Kate in the Dharma. And also I should say the same for Michael in terms of your mentorship of Jane Crystal Jung and what she has gained, through her Dharma journey, through your mentorship and your teaching. So thank you, both Michael and Karma Lekshe, for the wonderful influence that you've had on the people in the Dharma, in the younger generation coming up in the Dharma. Okay, our next participant is also the beneficiary of wise and deep guidance. She's the daughter of Tan and Sun Huynh, who are with us at this meeting. Tan and Sun are longtime Vipassana teachers. I remember attending Tan and Sun's house in their sittings when Steve and Michelle were teaching back in the 1980s. So in their house in Kahala. So we go back a very, very long way. And their daughter is Kim, who I was privileged to know as a very young girl, graduating from high school and going to college. And now Kim has really blossomed into a very, very wonderful, wise, and successful professional. Kim is an award-winning filmmaker and photographer who is now based in Southern California, who has produced projects for PBS, NBC, Google, and the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. She grew up on Oahu, and she has been practicing insight meditation for over 20 years. And she first became interested in mindfulness at a very young age when her parents hosted weekly meetings and Dharma talks in their home through Vipassana Hawaii. And of course, her parents are Tan and Sun Huynh, who are very active. At one point, Tan was the president of HAID, and so very active members of HAID. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Kim for her segment of the panel. Kim, please go ahead.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you to everybody, especially my parents. I have a favorite Buddhist joke. It goes, a Zen student asked his master, "Is it okay for me to use email?" And the master replied, "Yes, but no attachments." And through my practice over the years, I've observed how much of my suffering is caused by my deep attachment to wanting things to be different than they are, wanting people in my life to be different, wanting situations to be different, wanting myself to be different. There's a famous story of a group of Western Dharma teachers who had an audience with the Dalai Lama. And they were speaking to him about how so many of their students struggled with self-hatred. And he was incredibly confused by this idea of what is self-hatred, to the point that they say it took 10 minutes of conferring with his translator before he was even able to fully comprehend what they were talking about. And when he finally did, he said to them, "This is a mistake. Every being is precious." And Kate touched on this earlier, that we all have this innate Buddha nature, and just inherently by the nature of just being, we are all precious and we are all perfectly imperfect, but it can be so difficult to love and accept ourselves the way that we are. When I was growing up, yes, I was very blessed to be around the teachings from a young age, but it wasn't until my first residential retreat, I spent 3 days on the North Shore of Oahu. And through so many of my formative years, I felt ugly and unlovable. I was a bit of a late bloomer and felt very uncomfortable in my skin. Didn't get my first kiss until college. And, felt, I didn't quite feel like I fit in. And I remember on that third day, there was a sitting in which I experienced for the first time, probably in my life, this deep sense of equanimity and joy, and I couldn't stop smiling. And it was in that moment that I fully saw what was capable from this practice, what was possible. And so from there, I was very committed to following this path and deepening my practice. I did many retreats over the years. I sat with many different weekly Dharma groups and invited anybody who would come to join me at these Dharma sittings. And over time, I felt like I finally was able to build a foundation of love for myself that was unshakable through ups and downs and incredible heartbreak and loss. I was still able to be okay and be okay with myself. And all of this came into question in my life when I had to sit with the fact that though I had been very dedicated to many of the Buddha's teachings, I was not living in line fully with the Eightfold Path. And when the Buddha spoke of right speech, right conduct, and this path to the end of suffering, so much of what he was pointing to was that when we cause harm to ourselves and to others, especially the people that we love, we create so much suffering. And so I struggled to be able to forgive myself and accept myself and love myself after having caused harm, having caused pain. And I started to question, did I ever love myself at all? I thought that I had come to this place of being okay. And I remembered that back in 2010, I went through a very similar kind of crisis of identity after being diagnosed as bipolar. I experienced an episode of hypomania and was committed to a hospital at Cedars-Sinai. And when I came out of the hospital, I wasn't sure who I was anymore, because were my thoughts mine? Were they distortions of the disorder? You know, what was real? And I was in Honolulu and I attended a Dharma sitting and talk. And I asked the teacher, you know, I know that there is no solid self, but, you know, what do I hold on to? What do I know to be mine and me? I was looking for something solid. And he said to me, the idea that there is any solid sense of self is the biggest illusion of all. And we forget so often, you know, at least I know I do, that really this idea of who we are is a constantly shifting scape of feelings and sensations and thoughts that change day to day, moment to moment. One moment I love myself, one moment I feel shame, one moment I feel grief, one moment I feel joy. And so there's nothing solid to hold on to. And that sense of nothing solid, though it can be very scary and very vulnerable, it's actually incredibly liberating. Because what I begin to see is the pathway through loving and accepting myself is by just being with whatever is arising in the present moment. Whether it's fear, whether it's anger, whether it's shame, whether it's grief, just finding a way to be open to it instead of closing to it and building a wall against it, to actually just be curious and say, oh, okay. I have a teacher who's fond of saying, right now it's like this. Oh, this is what sadness is like. This is what anger feels like. Oh, that's actually very interesting. It's a funny contradiction, this idea of accepting yourself as you are and constantly striving to be more awake, more compassionate, to be a better version of yourself. But Jack Kornfield writes about our practice that we begin to discover a deeper truth about the self, which is that we don't have to improve ourselves. We just have to let go of what is blocking our heart. And when our heart is free from the contractions of fear, of anger, of grasping and confusion, then the spiritual qualities we have tried to cultivate manifest in us naturally. And Kate touched on this earlier, this idea of untangling. We don't have to fix ourselves. We don't have to be better versions of ourselves. We actually just have to allow our true selves to shine through. When I was talking to one of my teachers, Trudy Goodman, about the grief that I was experiencing around my remorse over the past, she shared with me this really beautiful passage from the Dhammapada, in which the Buddha said, "He who having been heedless is heedless no more, illuminates this world like the moon freed from clouds." And on this full moon, this resonates especially deeply. And I was so moved by this image of the clouds drifting away from the moon, of our natural Buddha nature shining through. Shruti shared another teacher saying to her that when you make your own mind bright, when you walk into a room, the light of your own mind will illuminate the others. And when we are able to deal with our own suffering and find ease and love and compassion, then we are able to be a light for others. When we are causing harm and causing pain, we spread that pain to others. When we don't address our own suffering, we spread that suffering to others. It's so often those who are hurt that go on to cause more hurt. You know, I think about these terrible shootings that have happened in the past 2 days and how much pain those gunmen must have been in to do something so horrible. And so if we can instead cultivate joy and equanimity, then we can be one less person in the world who's suffering, one less person in the world who's spreading pain, because there's more than enough of it. Brene Brown says, "Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light." And it's scary to turn within ourselves and confront the darkness within, the ugliness, the shame, the selfishness, the greed, the delusion. It's very difficult. it's difficult to sit with feelings that are unpleasant. But over time, as we continue to flex that muscle, then we can actually develop this resilience and become these powerful bodhisattva warriors, and learn that there's really nothing that we need to protect ourselves from. We can move through life and what it throws at us with ease, whether it's pain, whether it's anger, whether it's the incredible global human suffering that's around us. We can find some equanimity with that. Thai Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen monk who passed recently, he wrote once of the Vietnamese refugees who were fleeing from the war, that when the crowded Vietnamese boats met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat remained calm and centered, it was enough. It showed the way for everyone to survive. So as I begin my teacher training next year, and for everyone who's not in teacher training, this image of being this person on the boat who can be an anchor, who can be this light, is such a beautiful thing to aspire to. So I'd love to close by just inviting everyone to take a breath and send themselves some loving kindness and metta. May I be at ease with myself, just as I am, where I am. May my light shine a light to those around me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for that very, very powerful, heartfelt, sincere sharing of your own experience. We were all deeply moved. I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. And I think the power of your sharing and the power of Kate's sharing and the power of Crystal's sharing has been truly inspirational and truly moving. It's clear that all three of you have really, really understood and really brought the Dharma, the Four Noble Truths, into your lives. And you're truly living the Dharma, truly living the Dharma. And I think I speak for all of us when I share my gratitude, my expression of appreciation and gratitude for your sharing. We have learned so much from hearing from all three of you. You know, Kim, in terms of your incorporation of the teachings of the great teachers, Kate, in terms of your integration of the Dharma into somatic healing, understanding the dimension of somatic healing, you know, how suffering gets embodied in our bodies and how we can, you know, work through that. That's so inspirational and so beautiful. And Crystal Jing, for your sharing of your wonderful experience and coming from China and, you know, sort of seeing the Dharma here in Hawaii and in your life. We are all very, very moved into complete silence and stillness by the power of your words, the heartfelt power of your words. So thank you all so much. True gratitude and true appreciation for what you've shared. There's not much more I can say. It's except to just express my thanks. We are moving into a period of open discussion or questions and answers. We have about 20 minutes until 6:50. So we have a few minutes. So I would like to open the floor, if I could, for anyone who might want to have a question or comment or something they might want to share in response to what is said, or any one of our panelists, Crystal or Kate or Kim, if you would like to respond to what one of the other panelists have said, or make another comment or follow-up comment, please feel free to do so. So the floor is open. It's open for about 20 minutes, so we have a few minutes. So if anyone would like to ask a question or make a statement, please feel free to do so.
Greg, if I may recommend, if people feel more comfortable, have a smaller group discussion. I have a breakout room ready, group of 3 for maybe about 5 minutes to get started from small group and bring back.
Okay, that was a button I accidentally pushed and I went to that room.
Sorry, I was trying to get it ready.
Yeah,
What?
that's okay. Well, actually, let me start. So, okay, Lily's raising her hand. Lily, would you like to say something else? Please, go ahead.
Yeah, I was pretty much rendered speechless too. Very moved, deeply moved by all 3 of you. Thank you so much, Kim and Kate and Jing. And I can't add to what Greg has already so eloquently expressed for all of us. Just very powerful, very inspirational and moving. And the only thing I might add is that I am feeling so optimistic right now for Buddhism, especially Buddhism here in Hawaii, after listening to the 3 of you. It's just thrilling to me that there's so much wisdom in the younger generation. So I know a lot of this, it's true, feel that Buddhism was dying because look at us, most of us are gray haired and well, I'll just speak for myself. But anyway, so I'm just thrilled. I'm just thrilled and yeah, and awed by all of you. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to express a few words? I'm sure we all have the same feeling. It's just, having the courage to unmute ourselves and actually say something.
And I just really short, I just
please
like Lily, no, being speechless is hard to be speechless, but all 3 of them had totally different perspectives, 3 different personalities, 3 different, the whole images of the 3 ladies was, I couldn't believe it. And we're all talking about 4 noble truths and suffering, but they all brought so many different visuals and emotions. And yes, I think this is great for the future of Buddhism because that's all we talk about is we need to hear more from the young people because, the old folks have to make room and bring in the younger people. But this is a great example. This should be a good example of where to go from here. So come on, Greg, let's carry this mission and this journey and bring these 3 ladies with us. It looks good. The future looks good. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd love to hear a little more from Kate about the somatic work that you do and how that interfaces with your appreciation of the Dharma.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the somatic work is kind of on the rising trend right now. It's gaining popularity. Of course, it's been around since the dawn of time, but it's finally just kind of gaining popularity. Almost kind of the same way that John Kabat-Zinn kind of brought the secular mindfulness to the popularity of the West, and then Peter Levine is bringing somatic kind of in the same sense. So yeah, so the way where do I want to where do I want to go with that? So I'll kind of give an example of the way I actually use it with clients. And I work a lot, and this was, of course, all inspired by the practices I do in my personal life with deities. I work a lot with Tara, but then bringing kind of the secular version of that to clients who maybe aren't practicing the Dharma, but how to pretty much work with light and sensation through the body, how to move energy through the body. So essentially the belief around the somatic, and for anyone that's not familiar with the term somatic, so the word soma just is the Greek word for body. So basically the body has its own language. It speaks through sensation. You know, we can experience that when we get a tight chest, tightness in the chest from stress, or maybe we get a headache or a stomach ache, something like that. So that's kind of where somatic comes in, is there's an element of emotions or traumas that are being held in the body. The way I like to explain it is kind of when the brain is like a desktop computer, and when there's too big of a file for your desktop, it has like 5 gigabytes, right? What do? You transfer it onto a external hard drive. So I like to kind of make that analogy of, well, when there's something too overwhelming for the mind to make sense of, it then kind of drops into the body, and we hold trauma and these stories and emotions in different areas. So I work with both men and women, but mostly with women, trying to help them to use these, I call them somatic visualization techniques, but a lot of it is based off of what I've experienced with doing like Vajrasattva, like purifying practices, working with light, working with mantra, visualizations of things actually leaving and clearing the body, and then certain physical actual practices around the spine and the pelvic floor. And so, yeah, so I'll keep it short with that, but that's kind of essentially how I've used somatic and Dharma to weave together for these practices. Just really, really powerful.
Thank you. I have a general question that I'd like to address to Kim, Kate, and Crystal. We've heard so much, with the pandemic, the last 2 years, of the suffering of young people and mental health issues, the challenges that young people are facing with the difficulties of, remote learning, and how our schools are falling back, and a lot of young people are suffering from mental health. And I just read this morning, the suicide rate among young people has been rising exponentially, both nationally as well as here in Hawaii. And hearing, you can know that there's a sense of despair. There really is a sense of despair amongst our young people. And it's a despair that's probably not articulated, it's not expressed. And so it turns inward, into kind of self-hatred and a kind of self-destructiveness that can lead to suicide. And I think that, Kim, your comments really touched me in terms of your overcoming, this sense of self-hatred, this sense of self-deprecation that you suffered in your earlier years. But all three, Crystal and Kate and Kim, I was wondering what your thoughts are about the younger generation, what we can do to understand and be of greater assistance in whatever way possible to address this problem of alienation and despair among our younger generation today. Kim, would you like to start?
Sure, gosh, that's such a big question.
Yeah.
I know a lot has been written and said about social media and the effects of social media on self-image. I even noticed myself how easy it is to get into the comparing mind and the judging mind. And, you know, I hope that over time we can begin to create space for younger people to unplug and sit with themselves quietly in silence and learn to observe their mind, learn to observe their thoughts, and be able to create some space between them and notice that they are not their thoughts. They don't have to listen to their thoughts, you know, those judging, comparing, self-deprecating thoughts. I would love down the road, as I continue this practice, to be able to share mindfulness tools with younger people. I hope that this is something that could be shared regularly in schools. You know, I know my parents have done incredible work in the prison system. I have teachers who worked with a lot of juvenile incarcerated youth. So, you know, I think just taking that time to unplug and give people a sense of what it's like to be mindful, even if it's just for 5 minutes, could actually be really transformative.
Kate, would you like to say something about that?
Yeah. Actually, I want to have Crystal go first. Yeah.
Okay, okay, Crystal, would you mind?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. I personally went through similar routes as I was trying to seek an answer to understand why there's steep dissatisfaction that I felt. And I am immensely grateful for the 5-day Chan retreat held especially for young people in Hong Kong by Damodar Mountain. That 5-day experience of like just being introduced to very, very basic meditation techniques of observing our breath and just unplug from all the electronic devices and just have 5 days in a group of people learning the Dharma and learning the basic meditation technique, or just like relaxing techniques. We were taught like the body scan method to relax our body and to observe our breath. Those just very basic. It's not at that time they didn't even frame it in any Buddhist or religious perspective. It was just like some relaxing techniques for young people.
Right.
That was so transformative. Like for the first time, I was like, wow. There's an alternative to life. Like there's a different way of living your life, a different perspective that you can get out of your mind, get out of this forever self-doubt, self-criticism.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that Damodar Mountain was doing that, especially for young people. They have those retreats they partner with universities and invite young people, like especially college graduates, to join those retreats in Hong Kong. And I would really love to see those applied in a broader context, like in the US or in other places too. Yeah, that would be tremendously helpful.
Jane, can I just follow up a quick one? Because of the fact that you're from Hong Kong or from China, and given what's going on in China, in Hong Kong and Taiwan, Formosa, within the Chinese society, and all of the great changes that are going on and the potential for conflict over Taiwan and everything that's going on in Hong Kong, what is your sense of the condition of the younger generation now? I mean, they're going through as much trauma in their lives as American kids are going through in this country with the pandemic. Of course, they have the pandemic too, in addition to the political issues that they're facing. Can you say something about that? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was briefly in Hong Kong for 3 months last year when I was doing field research there. And in general, I felt like young people were really angry and disappointed. And the society was so divided, and people were so much into arguing against each other, and they were so attached to their own thoughts, and they were not speaking or listening to each other. They were not they were completely not listening to each other. They were just speaking to themselves, and I was pretty saddened by that. And in this kind of despairing condition, I know there are some Buddhist monks that were there who were doing were trying to promote breathing technique, or try to teach like very basic meditation technique to help people relieve from those depression, and it had very good effects. So I was at the same time very hopeful that the Dharma could help those young people out. It was getting attention from the society, and I know that a lot of young people are also drawn to that effort to like mindfulness practice or Chan meditation practice. So I also see a increasing interest in Buddhism in general in both Hong Kong and China.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Ching. Kate, would you like to say a few words, please?
Yeah, sure. So I think, yeah, it's definitely been very interesting. I do notice that sadly, I actually don't know many people my age who are interested in, I will say, Buddhism. However, the terminology Dharma is thrown out a lot. There are our Dharma, my Dharma, the Dharma. And so it's interesting to witness how the youth is kind of trying to incorporate it into their life, but then there's very much this process of kind of picking and choosing, oh, I like that, but I don't like that, which, yeah, Mick mindfulness, exactly. So, which is why, honestly, I have felt the call to try and enter mindfulness through the body and kind of do this methodology, because trying to get people my age to sit and just be still and meditate is so difficult. I had at University of San Diego, where I met Genla or Karma Sama. I led a meditation group twice a week for 3.5 years. And sometimes there would be 20 students, sometimes there would be 1 student. But it's very difficult to try and convince people to sit and be still, which is why I kind of, it's been interesting to be like, okay, let's go through the body and see what wants to be expressed through the body and cleared out and almost kind of purged through the body. And then kind of approaching it from there, being like, okay, once that's purged out of whatever's going on here, then the mind, then we can address the mind to be much calmer. And then we can think more clearly and coherently. So for me, there seems to be, it's almost like there's just so much going on in the body that it's difficult to really be able to be present with clarity of mind. So yeah, going through the body first. I'm trying this out. So far, it's been really effective for myself and people I've been working with. So as long as at the end of the day, it's really for the benefit of all beings. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Lily, please.
Yeah, I thank you. I wanted to ask Kate, I noticed that you mentioned specifically that you purposefully do this. You take a secular approach, even though it's Tara, Vajrayana that you're doing. So would you recommend that for all the rest of us Buddhists, if we wanted to attract younger people, that we approach it in a similar fashion? That what you're doing, what you've discovered a way in, is it like a bait and a switch approach? I mean, like, do you think that by introducing that, like almost like a stealth introduction to the Dharma, if you will, but you know, for for a positive, for a beneficial end, would you recommend that?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, Lily. Thank you. So the way I see it, and I remember the Dalai Lama saying this, His Holiness said, you know, the world doesn't need more Buddhists, right? It needs just more people that are able to have bodhicitta. And so I think, you know, my practice is my practice, but I think we can extract, and then I don't want to use the word extract because I don't want to detach it from anything that's core. You know, it's interesting. I've been having this conversation a lot lately with people. It's almost like there needs to be a new language that's invented. And it's almost like it hasn't, for embodiment practices, for some kind of translation. You know, I feel like the collective is really on the verge of figuring out something new that works for addressing everything that's going on, and really keeping it relevant. Like time, you know, times are changing, things are changing, and so I would recommend, basically what I do, Lily, is I don't use the words of Buddhism or Buddha or Vajrayana, Atara, but using the core elements of it, which is being able to work with light, being able to work with, you know, emanate compassion and work with all the qualities. So you're still talking about all the qualities that these beings emanate, and the light and the energy and everything like that. And so I think, I mean, that's the point, right? And even, I mean, even Tara, as we know, the deities, like, that's just their human form. So the mind can conceptualize when we work with them in visualization practice, but really they are energy. They're not humans. And so I think we can continue with that and to translate it and make it, yeah, workable with the essence of they are energy. They are visualizations. But the importance is what they emanate, which is the qualities we want to cultivate: compassion, insight, truth, etc. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm reminded of teaching, you know, when we were teaching meditation in the prison before COVID, that I recognized some of the things you were talking about, because the women would enter the room and our intention is to teach meditation, you know, skills to calm down. And they couldn't even sit down. I mean, they were so agitated. All they do is sit all day. So one of the things that Tan taught me, I started out by shadowing him, was to not even try to get them to sit down and do meditation. You can sense their vibe. The energy level is just too hectic. Just start doing movement, some move like you know, like a qigong exercise or a walking meditation. And that was the way in. It was through their body. And once they calm down through doing the simple qigong exercises where they just follow and mimic us, then they were able to sit down, and then then we approach, you know, calming the mind. So I can fully appreciate your method too. And we were also very secular too, because that way we attracted more people to come. Yeah, because it was predominantly a Christian environment.
Right. Thank you, Lily. Oh, I'm so happy you've had that experience too, or yeah. It's through the body first.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in what you're doing.
Thank you for what you do. Wow.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lily, and thank you, Kate. Actually, we're coming toward the end of the program. And I just want to say, hearing the wisdom of everything that you've been saying, Ken, Kate, and Crystal, it reminds me of of a line that I used to say, or I still say every once in a while, that given the advances in science, neuroscience, and psychology, and what we know about the body, what we know about the mind, how the mind works, neurobiology and everything. If we were to imagine, our civilization maybe 100, 200, 500 years from now, with the advances of science and knowledge that we have now, I have a feeling that what people would be considering as intelligence or wisdom or the way to live would be the Dharma. It would be what we understand to be the Dharma in terms of our understanding of mind, understanding of body, understanding of the inner relationships, and the maturity of that wisdom, because this is not transcendent wisdom. This is wisdom that lies within ourselves. This is the whole idea of the Dharma. Accountability, right action, wisdom lies within ourselves. Karma is something that we embody within ourselves. And there is no external authority to which we have to give obedience. It lies within ourselves. And this is what science will eventually teach us, and just common sense knowledge will tell us that this is the truth of our humanity. The Dharma is the truth of our humanity. And we have just yet to discover it. We haven't discovered it yet. It'll take a few hundred more years, I suspect. So, but having heard what you've said, it reminds me of that deep wisdom and truth that is expressed by all three of you, Kim, Kate, and Crystal. It's the truth that lies within ourselves, that the Buddha taught us to begin to understand through his teachings of the Dharma. Hopefully, eventually, we will all know that, and it will just be common sense. Right now, it's pretty esoteric, but hopefully at some point, it'll just be common sense. So thank you. Thank you all so much. You have shown us the vision of the future. Truly, thank you so much. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, Greg.
Michael, I'll turn it over to you. We're
yes,
coming down
I
to,
want to
yes,
extend my gratitude to Kate and Kim and to Crystal and to you, Greg. You've been a wonderful moderator. We're going to take our last few minutes to have our wonderful board member, Reverend Jiko Nakade, recite the Metta Sutta. And this is how we'll close today. Reverend Jiko is minister of Daifukuji Soto Mission in Kealakekua on Hawaii Island. Jiko, will you close us out, please?
May all beings be happy. May they be joyous and live in safety. All living beings, whether weak or strong, in high or middle or low realms of existence, small or great, visible or invisible, near or far, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, nor despise any being in any state. Let none by anger or hatred wish harm to another. Even as a mother, at the risk of her life, watches over and protects her only child, so with a boundless mind should one cherish all living things, suffusing love over the entire world, above, below, and all around, without limit. So let each cultivate an infinite goodwill toward the whole world.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you for coming, everyone. I hope to see you at another HABE event. If you are now on our mailing list, you'll receive notice, and you can always check our website, hawaiibuddhists.org. www.vesak.org. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.